Your kitchen is clean right now. You cleaned it last night. It took 45 minutes after dinner. Scrubbing the stovetop, wiping the counters, loading the dishwasher, dealing with the cutting board, the oil splatter behind the pan, the sticky spot where the sauce dripped. 45 minutes. And this morning, it's already not clean. There's a coffee ring on the counter, a butter knife by the toaster, a glass in the sink from breakfast. By tonight, after you cook dinner again, it'll take another 45 minutes. Here's the math that nobody talks about. You're cleaning your kitchen twice a day. Once after cooking, once before cooking the next time. The same surfaces get dirty, get cleaned, get dirty, get cleaned. The stovetop, the counter, the area around the sink. You're washing the same 3 square meters of surface over and over. And the total time you spend cleaning your kitchen each week is somewhere around 4 to 5 hours. For a room that's maybe 8 square meters, here's what's worth noticing. You're not cleaning badly. You're cleaning efficiently even. The problem is structural. You're cleaning things that got dirty because you let them get dirty, which sounds obvious until you realize there's a completely different approach where most of that dirt never lands in the first place. In many Japanese kitchens, especially the small urban ones, where space is tight and mess is immediately visible, the kitchen doesn't get cleaned after cooking. It gets cleaned during cooking. And the difference between those two words is about 3 hours a week. 5 habits. All of them happen while you're already in the kitchen. None of them add time to your day. Here's the model that makes all 5 habits make sense. There are 2 approaches to a clean kitchen. In the first approach, you cook, you make a mess, and then you clean the mess. Cooking and cleaning are 2 separate activities. First one, then the other. The mess is the tax you pay for the meal, and you pay it after. In the second approach, cooking and cleaning are the same activity. You wipe the counter while the onions are softening. You rinse the knife while the water is already running. You put the spice jar back before you reach for the next one. There is no after. There's only during. And when the meal is done and on the table, the kitchen is already clean. Not because someone cleaned it, but because the mess was never allowed to accumulate. The Japanese term for this general principle is sude soji, roughly cleaning while you're at it, or cleaning on the way. It's not a formal method. It's not taught in a class. It's a domestic habit that develops naturally in small kitchens where leaving a mess for later means you literally can't reach the next ingredient. Space forced the habit. The habit turned out to be better than the alternative, even when space isn't the constraint. The difference in daily time is significant. The cook then clean model takes about 40 to 50 minutes of cleaning per meal. The cook while cleaning model takes about 5 to 10 minutes of distributed effort that happens inside gaps that already exist. Waiting for water to boil, waiting for the oven, waiting for something to brown. You don't add time. You use time that was already being spent standing in the kitchen doing nothing. The first habit. Wipe the counter before it dries. This is the single most effective kitchen habit that exists, and it sounds almost insultingly simple. When something spills, splatters, drips, or lands on the counter during cooking, wipe it immediately. Not after cooking, not when you see it later. Now, while it's still wet. Here's the mechanism. Every kitchen substance, sauce, oil, juice, batter, coffee, is easy to wipe when wet and difficult to remove when dry. A fresh tomato sauce splatter comes off with 1 pass of a damp cloth. The same splatter, dried for 2 hours, requires scrubbing, possibly a cleaning product, and leaves a faint stain. The substance is the same. The only difference is time. In many Japanese kitchens, a small cloth, usually a simple cotton dishcloth called a fukin, sits folded near the stove at all times. It's not a cleaning product. It's a cooking tool. It gets used as often as the spatula. Splatter happens, cloth comes out, 1 wipe, cloth goes back. 3 seconds. The counter never accumulates dried residue because residue never has time to dry. The adaptation is 1 damp cloth, within arm's reach of the stove, used reflexively whenever something lands on a surface. Not a paper towel, a cloth you can rinse and reuse throughout the meal. The cost is zero. The habit takes about a week to become automatic. After that, your post-dinner cleaning drops by roughly half, because the hardest part of kitchen cleaning, the dried, stuck-on residue, simply stops existing. The second habit. Every gap is a cleaning window. Cooking has dead time. Water takes 4 minutes to boil. Onions take 7 minutes to soften. Bread takes 3 minutes to toast. Rice takes 15 minutes to cook. These gaps are when most people check their phone, watch a video, or just stand there. In many Japanese kitchens, these gaps are when dishes get done. Here's the mechanism. A cutting board used 10 minutes ago takes 30 seconds to wash. A knife takes 10 seconds. A measuring cup takes 5. The gap between onions in the pan and onions ready is long enough to wash everything that was used to get the onions into the pan. By the time you need the counter space for the next step, it's clean. Not because you cleaned, because you used a gap. The adaptation is a mindset shift rather than a technique. When you notice a cooking gap, water heating, something simmering, toast browning, scan the counter for anything that's done being used. Wash it, put it away. This isn't multitasking, it's sequential use of time that was already yours. You were going to stand there anyway. What changes? By the time dinner is on the table, the only things left to clean are the final pan and the plates you eat from. The 45-minute post-dinner session becomes a 10-minute finish. Not because you rushed, because most of the work happened inside the cooking. The third habit. Put it back before you reach for the next thing. This is the one that prevents counter creep. The slow accumulation of bottles, jars, packages, and tools that covers the counter surface during cooking and stays there until someone deals with it. In many Japanese kitchens, which are often small enough that counter space is measured in centimeters rather than meters, ingredients go back into the cupboard or refrigerator immediately after use. Not at the end of cooking. After each use. You take out the soy sauce, you pour, you put the soy sauce back. You take out the flour, you measure, you put the flour back. The counter never has more than 1 or 2 items on it at any time, because each item's journey is complete before the next one begins. Here's the mechanism. Counter clutter during cooking isn't about mess. It's about decision fatigue afterward. When cooking is done and the counter has 12 items on it, putting them all away feels like a separate task. When each item was returned individually during cooking, there is no task. The counter is already clear. The adaptation requires no special kitchen. It requires breaking one habit, the habit of leaving ingredients out because I might need them again. In practice, you almost never do, and the 10 seconds it takes to reach for it a second time is far less than the 5 minutes it takes to clear 12 items from the counter at the end. The fourth habit, the empty counter as the default. In many Japanese kitchens, the counter has nothing on it when cooking isn't happening. No toaster, no knife block, no fruit bowl, no decorative items, no paper towel holder. These items exist. They're in cupboards, on shelves, in drawers, but the counter surface itself is empty. This looks like minimalism. It's actually maintenance logic. An empty counter takes 5 seconds to wipe. A counter with 8 permanent residents takes 3 minutes to wipe because you have to move everything, wipe under it, and put it all back. Most people skip this, which means the area under and behind the toaster hasn't been cleaned in weeks, which means a slow buildup of grease, crumbs, and dust that eventually requires a deep clean. The mechanism is prevention math. 5 seconds of wiping an empty counter once a day equals 35 seconds a week. 3 minutes of moving, wiping, and replacing objects around permanent counter residents, which most people do once a week at most, equals 3 minutes. And the results aren't equivalent. The empty counter is cleaner because it gets wiped daily. The adaptation is gradual, not dramatic. You don't need to clear your entire counter tonight. Start with one item, the one that's easiest to store elsewhere. Move it to a cupboard or shelf. See how the counter feels with one less thing on it. Then another. Most people find that after removing 3 or 4 items, the counter starts feeling different. Not empty, but available. And available counters get wiped more often because wiping them is easy. The 5th habit, the kitchen closes. This is the habit that reframes all the others. In many Japanese households, the kitchen has a closing time. Not a formal rule, just a consistent point in the evening when the kitchen transitions from active to done. The last dish is washed. The counter is wiped. The cloth is rinsed and hung to dry. The stove is wiped. The kitchen is finished for the day. Here's the mechanism, and it's the same one that makes the Genkan work as an entryway boundary. A clear closing creates a state change. The kitchen is either in use or it's closed. When it's closed, nothing goes in. No late-night snack dishes left in the sink. No glass from the midnight water. The closing is the line, and the line is what keeps the kitchen clean for the morning. Without a closing, the kitchen is always technically in use. Dishes accumulate through the evening. The counter gets used for a snack, a drink, a sandwich. By morning, the kitchen needs work before you can even start breakfast. The day begins with a cleaning task, which is the worst possible start. The adaptation is one decision. What time does your kitchen close? Pick a time, after dinner cleanup, before the evening begins, whenever works. At that time, do a final wipe of the counter, wash whatever's in the sink, and hang the cloth. 5 minutes. After that, the kitchen is done. Anything used after closing gets washed immediately and put away. The kitchen stays closed until morning. Most people who adopt this notice within about a week that mornings change more than evenings. You walk into a clean kitchen to make coffee. You didn't do anything extra. You just drew a line the night before. A few honest notes. First, Japanese kitchens are often significantly smaller than Western ones. A typical kitchen in a Tokyo apartment might be a narrow galley with about 2 meters of counter space, total. In that space, the put it back before reaching for the next thing habit isn't a philosophy. It's a physical necessity. You literally cannot reach the next ingredient if the last 3 are still on the counter. Larger Western kitchens don't have this constraint, which means the habit has to be more intentional. Second, daily grocery shopping is common in many Japanese urban neighborhoods where small supermarkets and convenience stores are within walking distance. This means kitchens store less food, which means fewer items competing for space, which makes the empty counter habit much easier. If you do a weekly supermarket run and store a week's worth of food, your kitchen is working under different spatial constraints. Third, the fukin, the cotton cloth used for constant wiping, is a specific domestic tool in Japan, usually thin, absorbent, and designed to be washed daily. Using a Western dish sponge for the same purpose doesn't work as well because sponges stay wet and breed bacteria. A thin cotton cloth, rinsed and wrung after each use and hung to dry, does the same job. And fourth, none of this is universal even in Japan. Plenty of Japanese kitchens have cluttered counters, dishes in the sink, and a post-dinner cleaning session. What's common enough to be observable is the general tendency toward continuous cleaning rather than batch cleaning. And that tendency is what transfers. Where all of this comes from. Japanese kitchen design has been shaped by the same constraint that shapes everything in Japanese domestic life: space. Traditional Japanese cooking happened on a clay or iron hearth built into the floor, a kamado, which was essentially a single burner with a pot on top. The kitchen was small, dark, and utilitarian, usually separate from the living space. When modern kitchens arrived in the post-war period, they were built into apartments that were themselves small, and the kitchen often shared space with the living and dining area. Keeping the kitchen clean wasn't a separate activity. It was part of keeping the home livable, because you could see the kitchen from where you ate. The fukin tradition, the constant wiping cloth, goes back centuries. Traditional Japanese kitchens used wooden surfaces that stained and absorbed odors easily. Wiping them immediately after each use wasn't preference. It was the only way to keep the wood in usable condition. Modern kitchens have easier to clean surfaces, but the wiping habit persisted because it turned out to be faster than letting things dry and scrubbing later. The Tsuide Soji concept, cleaning while you're already doing something, isn't limited to kitchens. It shows up in bathroom maintenance, entryway care, and general household cleaning across many Japanese homes. The kitchen version is just the most visible because kitchens generate the most mess and the most cleaning labor. Put together, these produced a kitchen culture where cleaning is not a separate event, but a continuous thread running through the cooking process. Anyone can borrow that thread without needing a Japanese kitchen to do it. If you do one thing after this video, do this one. Tonight, when you cook dinner, put a damp cloth on the counter next to the stove. Every time something splatters, drips, or spills, wipe it immediately. One pass. Put the cloth back. Keep doing this throughout the meal. When dinner is done, look at the kitchen. Notice how much less there is to clean compared to a normal night. The counter is mostly clear. The residue is gone. The only things left are the final pan and the plates. That's the whole task. One cloth, one evening. See what happens. This week, add one more layer. When you notice a cooking gap, water heating, something simmering, wash one thing. Just one. A cutting board, a knife, a measuring cup. Don't try to wash everything. Just one thing per gap. By Sunday, notice how your post-dinner kitchen time has changed. Not because you decided to clean more, because you stopped letting things accumulate. That 45 minutes we started with, the stovetop scrubbing, the dried sauce, the counter covered in bottles, the kitchen that needed cleaning before you could even start. It was never about the cooking making a mess. It was about the cleaning happening too late. The alternative isn't a cleaner kitchen. It's a kitchen that never got dirty enough to need cleaning. One cloth on the counter. One wipe while it's still wet. That's where it starts. If this was useful, there's another video on why Japanese homes have so little storage and don't seem to need more. Same logic applied to the whole house.